Okay, who's a front-end developer? Okay, cool, that's fine. Who is working on the UI and animation on a web app or website? Okay, a bit less. And who knows what is request animation frame and kneading? Oh, okay, still a lot. That's cool. Okay, so today we'll talk about animations, and I've tried to do something not only for front-end developers but for everybody. So if you want to animate something, you'll be able to do it. First, I just want to introduce myself by two things: who I was before, because that's who I am now. So right now, I'm working for 2 years now at the Google Arts and Culture team in Rue de Londres, next to here, this office. Working on the UI and the animation on of the app. And before, I was working in agencies and studios on websites, and the aim was to do a website in a month or two, launch it, and never touch at the code anymore. So it was cool because we could work for a lot of different clients, but at the same time, when you really wanted to finish something, you couldn't really. And that's why now I'm at Google. It's because you do something and you really, really want to finish it to make it perfect, at least for the user. So what we have is 4 different things. We have one website for desktop, one for mobile, one Android app, and one iOS app. And the cool thing is that on mobile and the Android app and the iOS app, we use web views, so we use the same code for every platform. So it means that every time we push a feature, the feature is pushed for everybody, and we don't have to wait for the mobile team, for example, to do it also on their platform. And I will introduce 2 features I worked on for the past few months, which is in-painting and slideshows. So right now, it doesn't say a lot to you, but I will just explain it to you. First thing is the gigapixels images. So I will just introduce this thing and another old features we have for you to better understand why we did the in-painting and the slideshows. So gigapixels images are super high-res images that we provide. So we have hundreds of paintings, and we can really, really zoom inside the painting. And you can get so close that you can see details that you cannot even see with your own eyes because you just cannot do the focus on it, or because you cannot approach the painting. This is done by this camera, which is the art camera. So it's not the topic, but it's a cool camera. And so here, for example, you have an example of the details you can see, and sometimes you can see some hidden things like this thing that you cannot even see in the painting because you have like the whole painting and you cannot focus on one thing. And that's what we wanted to focus on within painting. And we also have a lot of stories. So we provide a storytelling platform to our partners. A partner is a museum we are working with. So we have more than 1,500 museums around the world we are working with. And they are creating stories like this. So we have thousands of them where they just tell a story. And a few years ago, so I wasn't there at this time, but we did the first in painting, which is this one. Not this one, but that's an example. Where you have a professional creator which talk about one specific painting, and he will take a detail, explain what is the detail, and then jump to another detail again and again. This is what is an in-painting. But on mobile, and it was a few years ago, so you have to think about it, it wasn't possible to do it just for performance reasons. So the simplest solution was to have the detail, so still zoomed, the text again and again. But for the user, it wasn't really that great because it's not really interactive and it's really hard to keep focus on the whole painting. So users weren't really happy. So we've tried to, and we looked at a way of doing it first on mobile because we knew that it was already working on desktop, and using the scroll. So no tap, nothing, you just scroll like everybody is doing, and you see it. And luckily, a few weeks before we introduced the Parallax, so I know it's almost everywhere now, but in big companies sometimes it's really hard to do because it has to be really performant. So we worked on it, we launched it, and it was a few weeks before we started to work on the inpainting and the slideshows. So for people who don't know what is a parallax, it's when different elements are moving at a different speed. And here it's depending on the scroll position. So on this example, it was on the previous homepage. You can see that the background and the logo and the text are moving slower than the scroll speed. And this is in painting on mobile that we have right now. So we have so the big picture scrolling up with a scroll. Then this picture is fixed at the top of the screen, so it's immersive, it's full screen, and you really can see the painting. And we have a small animation. So as you can see, we don't really see it because it's a little bit detailed, but when you scroll, you have fading of the picture and the borders on the side. So here everything is white, so you won't really see it, but you can download the app or go on the website and see it. But the borders are reducing, so we can show to the user that the user is entering inside the interactive mode. And then every time we have a caption describing a detail, we can jump to the next detail we want to highlight, and we also do something when the caption arrives at the top. Instead of showing it and hide the detail behind, we just show it, we just hide it, sorry, like here, in like 2 seconds, one, here, now. So even if the user is scrolling up, we can still see the detail in total without any interference. And we also used kind of the same principle with a gyroscope. So when you long press on the inpainting, you have a small animation, and then you just zoom in again inside the detail, and when you move your phone, you can look around the detail. So let's show you now some code. So here, everything is based on the scroll of the user. So we just listen to the scroll, and we will do something which is use the request animation frame function. So it's a tool provided by the browsers to animate things at 60 frames per second in the browser, which is really cool. So it's used like this. So when you call it, you have to call a function, and inside the function, you again have to call the request animation frame, calling again this function. So then you'll end up in a loop, and you will run 60 FPS. And inside the move pixel thing, you will do all the animations you want when the user is scrolling. The thing is, when the user will scroll, we will always call this request animation frame function. So we want to call it only one time. So for this, we just use a Boolean. When we call the move pixels function, it means that we are in the request animation frame loop. And when we scroll again, we just don't call it anymore because it's already running. But it means that now it will run all the time. So what we'll see after. Next thing is to do what we call kneading animation. So kneading is when you want something to be kind of smooth, if we want to simplify it. And it's really simple. You take one element. This element has a position, and in the future, this element will have another position. And we just take the difference between the two positions, and we multiply this this difference by a number between 0 and 1, and we add it to the east position. So like this, it's not really clear, but it's just a magic formula I learned like 5 years ago, and since now I use it almost every day. So the value is 0.9. If it's closest to 0, your animation will be really, really slow. And if it's close to 1, the animation will be fast. So when you scroll, for example, if it's 0.9, your element moving with the scroll will be at least almost at the same time, at the same speed, sorry, than the scroll. But if it's 0.1, then it will be really slow. So if you scroll like this, then your element will come after. Next, okay. Sorry. And here the issue, so like I said, we don't want it to happen all the time because sometimes the user will focus on something and won't scroll anymore, so we don't want calculation of nothing. So what we will do is to check the difference between the current position of the element and the destination position. And if this difference is lower than, here it's 0.1, but it can be 1. If it's inferior to this value, then we say that the current position is equal to the destination position, so you are at the end of the animation, and then we stop everything. So we stop the animation because it's just useless to calculate subpixels, because you just don't see them. And we also stop the request animation frame because we don't use it anymore. And at the top of the move pixels function, you see that we put the is running at false. So the next time the user will scroll again, then we'll run again in the move pixels thing. And at the bottom of the function, you can see element.css transform. So we just change the Y position of the element, and here you can do whatever you want. So you can rotate your element, you can scale it, you can move it, you can do just whatever you want. You can also use a canvas, you can use WebGL, you can do a lot of things. So you just replace this line but by everything you want to animate, and it will work. Now we'll talk about slideshows, where we use the same principle, but we had another issue, which was also, so in painting you have one big image, you have captions scrolling at the same time, and that's it. So we can just fix the image and just let the captions scroll on top of the image. But for slideshows, which is this thing, we have images overlapping each other, and we have a scale animation, we have a text on the side scrolling, we have the image staying in the middle of the screen with just a small translate, sorry. And so we have this on desktop because desktop are powerful, but on mobile, it's not really great performance-wise, and we cannot really do wherever you want. So here on desktop, for example, you see that everything is done at the same time than the scroll position. And on mobile, you can see that the scale is done only at one moment when you scroll. So if you remember the previous move pixels function, instead of moving an element, you can just add a class, do the animation in CSS, and then the trick is done, and it looks almost the same. And there's also something to consider. It's that, and you really see it on mobile, less on desktop, it's that when you scroll, the browser will try to send you the scroll position at the same frame than where you're at, but most of the time it will be sent at the next frame. It means that when you will animate depending on the past and not on your current position. So everything will be laggy because when you will scroll, you will have an element, and then you will scroll, and then the element will move, which is not nice. And we just used something we haven't really thought at the beginning, which is a sticky position in CSS. And that's what allowed us to do these overlapping images on mobile and on desktop at 60 FPS. This is a definition of MDN. It's not really clear even when you read it like 100 times. But I'll try to make it simpler. So when you have an element and you have a parent of this element, the child will stay inside the viewport until the parent is leaving the viewport. It will be better with an example. But I'll show you some code before. So here we have our 3 slides. So let's say we have each slide which takes the whole size of the viewport, and symbolized by a form here, we have the background. So we'll stay simple here, but then it can be complicated. So just basic CSS. So for the screen, which is a slide, we take the height of the viewport and the width of the viewport, and same for the background, and then it's just to make it full screen. Next thing is to use a sticky position. So here what you will do is put the sticky position on the background because that's the element we want to see at the screen when we are scrolling. And we'll do something which is And there's an error. So here we take every screens except the first one, and we give 2 times the height of the viewport instead of 1. But we don't do it. No, we do it on the screen. Sorry, so it's fine. And we do a margin top, which is minus the height of the viewport, which means that every screen will overlap the previous one. But the issue is that because in CSS the elements coming after will be on top of the others, then the next slides will be on top of the first one, which is not what we want. So we just do a quick JavaScript thing, which is giving a z-index superior to the last slide. So here, if we have 3 slides, the third slide will have the z-index at 3, the second one at 2, and the first one at 1. Oh, it's the opposite. The first one at 3, sorry. The second one at 2, and the last one at 1. So every previous slide will be on top of the next one. And we have this thing. So we have the background staying at the screen while the parent is scrolling up, which is pretty cool. And if you combine this thing to the thing we did on the in-painting with the easing and everything, then you can do what we've done for the slideshows, which means a lot of small animation to help the user to have an interactive experience at 60 FPS in the browser, which is cool. I've put 2 links, one for an in-painting, one in a slideshow. They will be in the slides, they will be in the video. You can take pictures now if you want. That's fine. You good? Okay. And that's it. Thank you. And yeah, if you
Thanks. So I think we have time for one question. Does anybody have a question?
Hello.
Hello.
Thank you for the keynote. Do you use React in your website?
Question is, do we use React? No. We use it's Google frameworks. So it's for the mobile thing, right? No, for the mobile, it's just a mobile.
Both.
Sorry?
For both.
For both, yeah. No, we just use the same framework and we just use web views. So it's not working as React, it's working kind of like Angular, but it's not Angular, it's something internal. I cannot really say more about it because it's internal, sorry. Okay. But no, it's not React.
And what do you think about React as a performance point of view?
I've never used it because that's the thing also at Google. So I've been at Google for 2 years, and when you're at Google, at least for my case, everything is inside. So when you need a tool, someone at Google did a tool for it. So you can be curious and do other things, but I didn't really have a side project where I needed React, so I cannot really tell you about it. But it looks nice, and now it's true. Like even there's bad thing and nice things, so it depends on your purpose.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe just one more question, if anybody has a question. Nope. Okay, you're dismissed. Thank you so much.